Hi everyone, my name is Ishana Baran. I'm the VP of External and Community Affairs for the Simon Fraser Student Society, also known as the SFSS for short. I'm calling in from the stolen and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The SFSS is a student-led nonprofit organization that represents over 26,000 undergraduate students. The SFSS represents membership across our 3 campuses located in Vancouver, Surrey, and Burnaby. We aim to provide services for our student membership and advocate for student needs that build upon student power. Today, the SFSS has 3 recommendations they would like to share with the Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. Our first recommendation is to increase financial access to post-secondary education through the implementation of a tuition freeze by 2023. We ask that the government increase access to grants, scholarships, bursaries, and subsidies for BIPOC, migrant, international, and low-income students that ease the burden of unaffordable post-secondary education and precarious housing. Students are relying more on grants now than before. In the 2020/2021 year, Stats Canada reported that tuition for domestic students rose to 1.7% and 4.9% for international students. Data shows that domestic students pay an average of $6,000 to $7,500 in tuition, while international students pay around $32,000 in tuition. Increasingly, Stats Canada further reported that post-secondary institutions have relied on income from international students as part of their revenue stream. With this in mind, we encourage the government to find measures to decrease the reliance on students via their tuition funds. We cannot be relied on to make up for the lack of public funding for post-secondary institutions. International students are especially vulnerable to these tuition hikes as they do not have a cap on their yearly increases. While we thank the committee for providing a 2% cap on domestic student increases, international students still do not have this advantage and are left paying for university operating costs. Ultimately, tuition increases paired with hikes in the rental housing market affect the quality of living for students. As most would agree, being a student is hard. Not only are we responsible to find the means to fund our education, but we are also responsible to keep a roof over our heads. This is especially exhaustive for marginalized groups who directly face the impacts of systematic barriers on the constant. Should the government establish a tuition freeze and create more financial access for marginalized groups, we may be able to take the first steps in easing the burdens that students experience. Our second recommendation is to provide expanded access and health services, including counseling and other key mental health services, dedicated funding towards equitable academic accommodations, and physical and technical infrastructure for universal design in the campus environment, in the online and in-person classroom. In 2020, the SFSS conducted a COVID-19 mental health survey based on a sample size of 2,474 respondents. Our findings showed that students lacked adequate support in areas related to financial burdens, loss of employment, substance abuse, and a significant decline in mental health. While we thank the committee for implementing a 3-year plan to invest $10 million for mental health supports within post-secondary institutions, allocating funds to institutions in general is still not an adequate enough of a solution. Instead, post-secondary institutions need streamlined funds that incentivize post-secondary institutions to implement a universal design model of learning. This includes providing monetary incentives for institutions to hire professionals who carry the knowledge and lived experiences to support marginalized students. Our third recommendation is that the government work towards providing inclusive housing options for post-secondary students that are affordable, accessible, and pet-friendly. We highly encourage the government to look into creating rent subsidies solely for students with a strong emphasis on student rental protections both on and off campus. Students cannot keep up with rent increases due to tuition hikes and the rising cost of living. In the 2010/2011 year, Stats Canada reported that the cost of rent averaged between $4,000 to $5,500 per month. Within the decade, Stats Canada further reported that the average cost of rent increased to $6,000 to $11,000 per month. When rent increases, students lack the capacity to prioritize their education. In other words, these barriers to rent incentivize students to focus more on making the means to cover their basic needs, such as food and housing. This challenge is amplified for international students who are already navigating new and complex systems. International students are also limited to working 20 hours per week, which does not leave extra money for students to live comfortably. All these barriers limit students of their university experience of networking, attending university socials, and engaging with diverse perspectives. Now, the SFSS would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present these recommendations. Thank you.